Hey everyone, welcome to Mind Over Matter, the podcast where we dive deep into the mind and explore the power of resilience and growth. I'm your host, Anya. Today, we have an amazing guest, Fanny Tristan. Fanny is a trauma therapist and singles coach who helps women of color embrace their single era through education, travel, and sisterhood. She is here to share her insights on being a single woman over 30 and the breakup recovery process. Let's get started. So, Fanny, what are some common challenges single women over 30 face after a breakup?
I think that single women after a certain age, usually in their 30s and 40s, tend to experience a specific pressure that oftentimes comes from within, but really begins with society and their community. That there's this expectation that they should be um, going into a new phase in their life that has to do with romantic partnership, family, having children, and things like that. And oftentimes, when that doesn't happen seamlessly for some women, or it's just, well, you just don't even want children or you don't want to get married, that all of a sudden you feel like you're being treated differently, or you feel like you're in a different kind of category than you were when you were a bit younger and there wasn't this kind of expectation put onto you.
Mm-hmm. And how can these challenges impact their self esteem and sense of identity?
Of course. I mean, I think that it's a huge, huge impact on a woman's identity, right? Because if you have friends that are going down this path, if you have family that have these expectations, if you have, people pressuring you to start a family, they're reminding you of your biological clock, all of these things that you're probably already thinking about, um, it can really cause you to believe that you're doing it wrong, you're doing life wrong, that you're not uh, succeeding at life, right? That there's something that you're failing at. Um, and that's just kind of the mindset part, right? There's also, you know, self-esteem concerns in terms of your age, right? Your relationship with aging, um, believing that there's this kind of competition with younger women sometimes can happen. And so I think all around, kind of from the outside and the inside, there can be a lot of impact to just the way that you see yourself in the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's so important to acknowledge these challenges and understand how they shape our journey.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, how does the breakup recovery process differ from a woman over 30 compared to a younger woman?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. So, how does the breakup recovery process differ for a woman who is over 30 compared to a younger woman?
I honestly don't think that age matters when it comes to breakup recovery. I think that when you are in a period post breakup, right, you kind of have this clean slate that you can work with where you get to learn from the experience that you had and really get to practice the ways in which you can reconnect with yourself and redefine what your future looks like for you, with or without that partner, right? Um, I think that's true for women when they're 25. I think it's true when they're 35. I think it's true when they're 45, right? I think uh, we are, because of the way that women are set up to thrive in society, they are already expected to be a certain way. Oftentimes, that way is dependent on a partner, usually a man. Um, and so there isn't a lot of room for redefining yourself, redefining your own future or what a future looks like without a man. Um, and so a lot of us haven't done that work. A lot of us haven't done that exercise. And so no matter what stage in life you're in, if you haven't really redefined a sense of self, then that completely impacts the type of partners you may seek in the future, the kind of community that you seek. what you are needing from real relationships in your life. And that has a huge impact on your quality of life. And so no matter what age you're in, it's incredibly important to have that strong sense of self. And I think that we're all in different stages of life, no matter what age we're in, um, that we need to reconnect to that after a breakup.
Mm-hmm. And it's so fascinating to see how our life experiences can influence our resilience and recovery.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what holistic practices and tools do you recommend for women to regain their spiritual and self connection after a breakup?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that some of the holistic tools that I like to use is exactly what I offer in Her Soul Supply. I want women to travel. I want them to get out of their comfort zone so that they see in real time that the world is a lot bigger than they think it is. Um, I want them to learn about themselves through feminist texts. And so the reading groups that I hold, either in person or virtual, is a great opportunity for them to dig a little deeper in these kinds of personal development or self-help books that can be popular, but sometimes are just focused on relationships to self, relationships to other people, and really being able to guide through those conversations through coaching from me, and also be amongst a community of women that are all trying to learn the same thing, I think can be incredibly enriching and an opportunity for you to explore different things about yourself that you might not have known or different concepts or philosophies that that you would like to adopt now that you have this clean slate. And so things like reading groups, being able to read some of these self-development books with the assistance of coaching or some kind of therapeutic space to process those things and understand what that means for you and your specific situation, right? And building that sisterhood, whether it is in that kind of group or also going to a retreat with Her Soul Supply, where everyone is kind of there with the notion of, yes, wanting to travel, perhaps wanting to have a vacation, but having it be intentional because they want to engage in wellness, they want to reset, they want to um, build community with other women that know what they've been through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And can you share a specific practice that has been particularly effective for your clients?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my one-on-one coaching with them, getting that kind of personalized support is super, super helpful. Um, to give you a bit of a background in my work, my background is in clinical social work. I am a trauma-focused therapist. I've been doing this work for over 15 years, and the kind of uh, clients I was seeing very consistently in my practice were women who were oftentimes coming out of a breakup, wanting to do therapy, to heal from their breakups. And I realized over time, as much amazing work that we were doing uh, in terms of their trauma recovery, that I knew that there was more that I wanted to support them with. I knew that there were more things that can help them holistically. That was more than just the therapy office. And I also didn't want to feel like I needed to diagnose you in order to help you learn some of the ways to love yourself more. I felt that there was something separate to that that wasn't about medicine, that wasn't about the medical model. And so that's really where I grew the idea of Her Soul Supply is kind of taking some of the tools that I know are helpful for women in transition, but and who are going through grief, but also to be able to provide the offerings that can provide that wraparound service. And so, like I mentioned before, that includes the retreats, it includes reading groups, but I think it also includes that one-on-one coaching so that they feel like their story is being heard. They feel like they know that someone understands the nitty-gritty of their life in the context of who they are in the world, their identity, their age, all of the things that they feel define them, and really figuring out a personalized roadmap to reconnecting with yourself to getting excited about your future, regardless of your relationship status, and being able to do that on a very personalized level. And so folks really benefit from having that one-on-one connection, and just getting into it, with this kind of individualized plan.
And like the practices can be incredibly empowering and help us reconnect with our true selves.
Hmm.
So, how can women of color navigate the cultural narratives that shape their views on singlehood and relationships?
Well, I think that it starts with their own capacity to believe that they can be something other than what they were raised to be. I think especially depending on the culture that you've grown up in, oftentimes you're not encouraged to build the kind of skills that you need to be an independent, um, and fulfilled woman, right? Because a lot of it has been built to depend to get those needs and to depend on that from men. Um, and when you are a woman that wants more than that, right? It can feel scary to step out of that mold. And I think it starts with your community. It starts with the belief that there are other women out there that also want what you want, that will also recognize that what you want is not bad. Um, and how do you build the tools in these kinds of spaces in her soul supply through coaching, through these sister circles, to be able to stand up for yourself, to be able to imagine what would a world be like in which you know that for a while your family may be disapproving, and is that something that is worth going through in order for you to feel freedom in your life. um and so I often think that those are the things that really contribute to, um being able to figure out what works for you specifically in one-on-one coaching or even through travel, being able to compare that and recognize, okay, there are certain parts of my identity, parts of my culture that are important to me. Those things will always stay with me. However, there are also things that as a grown woman, I recognize are actually really unhelpful or perhaps even harmful and toxic. And that those are things that I can actually choose to leave behind and not perpetuate for future generations, and that that's a huge contribution to not just herself and her own well-being, but to also the nieces and the nephews and all the future generations of girls and women who want to look up to that and see that there is something that's possible that they don't have to be doing just because the culture says so.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And what steps can they take to decolonize their mindset and build confidence?
I think that it starts with learning, right? We don't know what we don't know. And so I think, part of what I love about reading groups is that you discover that there have been women out here for generations writing about this stuff, right? Sometimes even books that were banned in the past because they had ideas that seemed so radical to, um, the patriarchy that they didn't want women reading them. And so I want us to read those books. I want us to read, um, and talk about the ways that life can be different where we don't center men. And I think that that's where it starts because I think when we think about the ways in which our cultures were colonized, the ways in which our minds were colonized, um, you don't always see it because it's just our norm. It becomes our culture, right? And so it starts by learning.
Mm-hmm. Challenging cultural narratives can be a powerful step towards personal growth and empowerment. So, what role does sisterhood and community play in the breakup recovery process?
Well, I think that because oftentimes women who try to step out of the mold and are really trying to carve out a life for themselves that feels valuable, that feels, free, um, sometimes we do that in communities where they don't understand what we're trying to do. right? They have stuck to the mold or have this expectation for you to stick to the mold or have this understanding that you will be happy if you stick to the mold, right? Which isn't actually realistic for a lot of women. And so oftentimes you have to seek that community out. It's not something that you're already in. Um, and so that is a big part of what is being manifested in her soul supply is building that community all over the world of women who are challenging the mold, who are also having trouble with their parents, who are just mad that they're not married and pregnant at 35, right? Um, because if you don't have that reflection of other women going through that and other people telling you that it's actually okay what you're doing, and it's just something that feels scary, but that doesn't mean that it's bad, right? That's when we are able to find the courage to maintain that and to actually go through that and really claim that freedom. Um, and it can be hard to do that by yourself, especially if you're coming from a community that doesn't understand that.
Right. So, how can women build and nurture these supportive connections?
Mhm. Well, I think, that is something that is offered at Her Soul Supply. We do in-person events in New York City. That's to where I'm based. We do international retreats where women from all walks of life can join for multiple days. Um, I mean, we have the reading groups that are virtual and in person. And I also encourage women to go to um, events on their own where they can meet with other women. Um, I think that especially in this day and age, there's been a lot of focus on community building. And so there's a lot of ways in which people are creating these platforms in which people can just meet each other. So I think when we think about a first step, right, think about the things that you enjoy doing, right? And go to those things because then you are likely to meet people who align with your interests, which I think is a huge entry point that you can use when meeting somebody new.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, Fanny, for sharing your wisdom and experiences with us today. Remember,
Mhm.
listeners, the breakup recovery process is a journey that involves reconnecting with yourself and embracing your strengths. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Let's continue this journey of mind over matter together. See you next time.